I almost didn't even post this segment, and nobody will tell you about this. Spain is pushing back hard against one number, 5%. Spain is not leaving NATO. Spain is not rejecting NATO. Spain wants to be part of NATO, but NATO wants members to spend up to 5% of their GDP on defense by 2035. Spain says that that number is too high, too expensive, and not necessary for its situation. So tonight we're asking, should every NATO country be required to spend the same number, well, percentage-wise, on defense? Or should countries like Spain be allowed to protect healthcare, education, and pensions first? Please remember to like, follow, and share, and comment below. Welcome to Money in Politics Simplified, the show where we break down the power, policy, and profits without the spin. I'm Esco Latimer. Tonight, we're discussing the disagreement between Spain, NATO, and you guessed it, President Donald J. Trump over defense spending. This is not about whether Spain supports NATO. Spain remains a NATO member and participates in alliance mission. The real fight is over, well, money. It's always over money. And we are going to simplify it for you. NATO members have long been pressured to spend more on defense. For years, the target was 2% of GDP. Now, the discussion has shifted toward a much higher goal, 5% of GDP by 2035, so a ramp up. Supporters argue that Russia's war in Ukraine, cyber threats, terrorism, and rising global instability require NATO countries to invest more in defense. The United States has repeatedly argued that Europe must carry more of the burden for its own security. President Trump has been especially critical of NATO, especially the NATO members who believe that, hey, you know what? You're not carrying enough of the weight. You're not paying enough. Spain's argument is, I quote, we can meet our military obligations without spending 5%. How is that possible? The Spanish government says it can meet NATO's required military capabilities by spending closer to 2.1% of GDP, not 5%. This is a major difference. For Spain, this debate isn't only about national security, it's also about budgets, taxes, and public service. Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez has argued that raising defense spending to 5% could force very difficult choices in his country. That money has to come from somewhere. It could mean higher taxes on his people, more debt, less money for healthcare, less money for education, less money for pensions, less money for housing or infrastructure. Spain's government argues that defense matters, but so do social programs that the citizens rely on every day. That's the tension right there. Security abroad versus stability at home. Spain also argues that 1% target may not make sense for every NATO country. Every country has different geographies, threat levels, military needs, economic conditions, existing defense capabilities, public budgets. A country bordering Russia may view defense spending differently than a country in Southern Europe. Spain says NATO should focus on whether countries deliver needed military capabilities, not just whether they hit 1% number that is mandatory. In other words, measure results, not just spending it. From the American perspective, this looks different. The United States spends enormous amounts of money on defense and has long served as NATO's military backbone. Many American taxpayers ask, why should we pay more if wealthy European countries won't? That's why Trump and other U.S. leaders have pushed NATO members to contribute more. To them, Spain's resistance looks like another example of Europe depending too heavily on American military power. That argument resonates with many voters in the United States, but doesn't it also give us a little more leverage in other countries? There's always some give and take. Spain's government also faces political pressure at home. Prime Minister Sanchez leads a coalition that includes parties skeptical of major military spending increases. For those parties, raising defense spending to 5% could be politically toxic. Many voters prefer investments in wages, healthcare, housing, and pensions. That means Spain's NATO position is not just a foreign policy, it's a domestic. policy as well. Sounds like they want their cake and eat it too. This debate raises a bigger question for every democracy. How much should a country spend on defense before it starts weakening the quality of life at home? Spend too little, and national security may suffer. Spend too much, well, your citizens may feel abandoned by their own government. NATO's challenge isn't finding a balance that keeps the alliance strong without ignoring each country's economic realities. Spain is forcing that debate into the open. And as always, let's simplify this in short terms. Spain is not rejecting NATO. Spain is rejecting the idea that every NATO member must pay 5 of GDP on defense. Spain says it can meet its military obligations at around 2.1% while protecting healthcare, education, pensions, and other public services that it offers its citizens. The United States argues that every NATO member must contribute more because global threats are rising and they're getting more expensive. This is really a fight for or a fight over priorities, military readiness, social spending, taxes, and who pays for collective security. Personally, I understand both sides of it. I really do. America should not be expected to carry NATO forever. European countries do need to contribute more to their own defense. But, and this is a big but, I also believe spending targets should make sense. If Spain can prove it can meet NATO's real military needs at 2.1%, then NATO should consider the capability, not just the percentages. At the same time, Spain cannot enjoy the protection of NATO while refusing to carry a fair share of the military burden. The real question should be, what does Spain actually deliver to the alliance? Not just how much it spends on paper, because in the end, security isn't only measured by budgets, it's measured by readiness, capability, and whether allies can depend on each other when it really matters. What do you think? Should every NATO country be required to spend 5% of the GDP on defense, or should countries like Spain be allowed to spend less if they can still meet NATO's military needs? For Americans watching, are you tired of the United States carrying so much of NATO's burden? Let me know in the comments. I'm Esco Latimer. Please remember to like, follow, share, and comment. It really helps build the channel as it's growing. And this is Money and Politics Simplified. Stay informed, stay engaged, because when you understand the money, my friends, you understand the politics. Have a good day.
Yeah, Esco Latimer, talking money.